Today we're picking up right after our fight track. Remember, the Song of Songs is not just one song, it's an album, it's an emotional arc. We've walked through early attraction, we've walked through springtime love, we've walked through insecurity and fear, and the wedding, and the honeymoon, and then last week we hit the fight track. And it's a shift out of that early springtime love into something that has become stronger, or has to become stronger and more mature. Because love's not all that easy. There's real hurt, there's real rejection, there's real distance. And it turns out the Bible's honest about all that, and God's here to help. What's interesting about that fight is that we never see them have the fight itself, or an argument, or see them talk it out. What we see is our girl, the one who does the initial rejecting, whether she meant to or not, she very quickly recalibrates her own heart back to her man. And she gets up and she goes after him. She runs into her friends. When they ask her why they should care about him, she sings his praises and retunes her heart to him. So then the next thing we see is what? Well, they're just making up. Lights dim, curtains go down. That's where we left off. Now we're on to the next song, and it's his turn to speak. So picking up in chapter 6, this is our dude singing. You're beautiful as Tirzah, my love, lovely as Jerusalem, awesome as an army with banners. Okay, now Tirzah and Jerusalem were capital cities, cities set on hills. They're powerful, secure, intimidating in their beauty. Here's what he's not saying. Oh, you're cute. He said that before. He'll say it again. But here's something else that's happening. Here he's saying, you're overwhelming to me. You're overwhelming. Jake, how do you know that? Great question. I just kept reading. That's the answer. Turn your eyes away from me, for they overwhelm me. See, you don't have to be that insightful. You just kind of keep reading, read ahead. And what he's saying is, there's something otherly about her beauty, something powerful enough to inspire awe. This is almost the language of what? Of worship. And if you've been paying attention, you've probably noticed that that's not a new thing. The entire song is saturated actually with worship language. When her body is described as a garden or a locked garden flowing with honey and milk, what do you think an ancient Hebrew would have heard? Not romance novel cliches, right? Paradise, promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the Garden of Eden, fruitful, abundant, set at the meeting place of living waters. Her body throughout the book is described with Edenic imagery, which means the pleasure of her body is not treated as base or animal, but as heavenly. As close to heaven as he'll ever be while walking this earth. And here you thought the Goo Goo Dolls wrote a terrible song in the 90s. They did, you were right, but this is different. Oh man. I get some smirks, I get some shrugs. Should I trade you for Pentecostals? We need to call that joke back. I was told I wasn't allowed to do that anymore. All right. She's described with Edenic imagery, right? Garden of Eden, paradise, promised land. Same thing actually happens when she describes him. The poem we looked at last week, his arms of gold inlaid with sapphire or lapis lazuli, precious metals and stones. Does that ring any bells for you guys? It should. It's temple imagery. It sounds like Exodus and Revelation. They're constantly borrowing the language of worship and paradise to describe one another. And if you pulled those lines out of context, they might sound blasphemous in most Christian circles, but they're not. They're here in the Bible. Can you take that too far? Of course you can. Sex isn't God, your spouse isn't God, but sex is heavenly. It is an Eden-level gift of God that was given before the fall. Creation begins with a marriage. Redemption ends with a wedding, the marriage supper of the Lamb. Marriage itself is a living parable of Christ in the church. So when he looks at her, he's not just attracted to her, he's overwhelmed, he's in awe. And then once you see that, of course, the most natural place to go next is to bring back the goats. The goats come back. Your hair is like a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. No full goat jokes today. We've got a lot to cover. Again, I'll just say, don't try horses or goats at home without some translation work and a playful spirit. Then he goes straight to teeth, and it reads like a bad country song. Your teeth are like a flock of ewes that have come up from the washing. All of them bear twins. Not one of them has lost its young. Baby, your teeth are clean. They're all there. Not one is missing. Yeehaw. Ancient romance. And then he lands it with your cheeks are like halves of a pomegranate behind your veil. Your face is lovely, full of life and cover. So there's all here. There's intensity. There's also playfulness. And then he comes back to a theme that is absolutely essential in marriage and one that matters a lot for this girl. Because from the beginning, she's had some insecurity, right? So he says, there are 60 queens and 80 concubines and virgins without number. All right, ladies, you like where that's going so far? Again, keep reading. My dove, my perfect one, is the only one of her mother, pure to her who bore her. The young women saw her and called her blessed, the queens and concubines also, and they praised her. Okay, here's what he's not doing. What he's not doing is pretending that other options don't exist. He's not pretending other women don't exist. He's not pretending he's never noticed another woman in his life. There is abundant beauty in the world, but he has made a choice. My dove is the only one. That's the point. Desire grows in the direction that you feed it. It grows where comparison is refused, where comparison is rejected. And we live in a culture that treats desire like a marketplace. Swipe, scroll, compare, upgrade, optimize. And when desire is trained in a marketplace, it becomes restless. It becomes dissipated. There's always something more exciting, more available, more validating, more responsive, more beautiful. So desire then gets scattered and spread thin, and it never settles. The song doesn't grow desire by pretending there aren't other flowers. It doesn't deny that real objective beauty exists in abundance. God's creative. God is good at his job. There are lots of beautiful women. Instead, what the song does is teach us that desire deepens by singling out one person and saying, she's the one. And then this is the key. You forsake all others. Not because they're not beautiful, but so desire can go deep instead of wide. It can explore the hidden beauties of a single person. Desire then, instead of being scattered and spread, concentrates and deepens. Think of it like astronomy versus oceanography. Don't take this too far, but just kind of roll with my illustration here for a minute, okay? The astronomer looks out at the stars, and what does he see? He sees worlds upon worlds, endless worlds, billions of worlds, endless beauty, all at a distance. Glorious, vast, largely untouchable. Lots of beauty out there that he can only scratch the surface of. But the oceanographer or the explorer or the Arctic explorer, however you like it, says, yeah, but our own planet is an inexhaustible world of beauty unto its own. There are places no human eye has seen, still. There are depths no one's fully explored. There are riches hidden beneath the surface. You take the stars, I'll spend my life getting to know the earth. When it comes to science, astronomy, you enjoy it all you want, but when it comes to marriage, reject the stars. Stop reaching for beauty that's beyond your grasp and beyond your knowing. You can skim the surface of infinite worlds, but there's something better. Explore the world that God gave you. You're never going to exhaust the riches of its beauty. Okay. Then, continuing. Who is this who looks down like the dawn, beautiful as the moon, bright as the sun, awesome as an army with banners? Okay. Think about that for a second. What are the dawn, the moon, the sun next to a woman? This isn't just attraction, it's cosmic language, right? Now, awesome as an army with banners sounds a little strange to our ears. And that's because it's not just a wooden translation, it's an interpretation. She's already been compared to fortified cities set on hills. Now she's being compared to the moon and the sun, things that rule the sky. The best translation of that verse, that line that I've heard, is daunting as what looms on high. Think about the kinds of things that loom on high and stop you in your tracks. Great cities, mountains, stars, the heavenly host. That's what she's like to him. Not just cute, not manageable, not small, but majestic, overwhelming, and awe-inspiring. And then we shift. I went down to the nut orchard to look at the blossoms of the valley, to see whether the vines had budded, whether the pomegranates were in bloom. Before I was aware, my desire set me among the chariots of my kinsman, the prince. That's a strange passage. Here I think the dude's still talking. Your translation may have decided to shift voices to her. In any case, he goes down to the orchard. Suddenly he's swept up, caught up in love. Whatever could it mean? I have no idea. We're just going to keep moving. Okay, so why are these songs placed here in the album? This isn't early dating poetry. This isn't springtime love. That's not the moment we're in, right? These songs come after misunderstanding, after distance, after hurt, after reconciliation. And remember, she's a woman who's struggled with insecurity. She doesn't feel conventionally beautiful. She's been afraid she's not enough. So what does he do? He reassures her, you're the one, nothing has changed, you're still chosen. And here's what he's not doing. He's not trying to extract something. He's not applying pressure. He's not obligating intimacy. I think one of the most common mistakes immature people make is reading this song like a transaction. Like one person gives praise, the other person responds with intimacy, inputs and outputs. And they think, great, if I just put the right inputs, I'll get the right outputs. But that's not love. It's neediness and it's immaturity. And you know it's not giving because you're disappointed when you don't get the response that you think you paid for. Okay, let me make this concrete. A guy says, hey, babe, I just want to connect with you tonight. So he puts the kid to bed, does the dishes, lights some candles, says, sex starts in the kitchen, right? Forget foreplay, baby. I've done my chore play. And then, thank you. All right. And then he says, let's talk. I want to hear your heart. Now, did they connect? Did they connect? Yeah, sure. But that wasn't the point, because when the night doesn't end the way that he hoped, is he cool with that? Or is he frustrated and angry and cold? Why? Because he wasn't actually giving. He was trying to get something, and he thought he was paying for it and that he was owed it. He was lying to himself and to her about what he really wanted. And this isn't just about sex, it works with emotional intimacy too. I'm going to disclose something vulnerable. I'm going to open up about my childhood. I'm going to share something painful. Okay, your turn. What, you didn't want to reciprocate? How dare you? I made myself vulnerable. I paid for that, and now I want it. That's not how healthy relationships work. That's how transactional relationships work, where people try to obligate one another. And you can do it with money, you can do it with gifts, you can do it with sex, you can do it with vulnerability. If you've ever been caught in a loop like that, you know what happens then. The other person controls the terms. And then the expectations keep shifting. And you're always trying to guess what you owe next and how to respond just right, or else you're in trouble. It's not love, it's pressure, and it's not what we actually see in the song. What we see instead is this. He cultivates his own desire for her. He speaks it freely. He builds her up because he loves her and he likes her. And he's not managing an outcome. He's simply saying, babe, this is how I see you. He uses his words to do it because words are a creative force. God spoke the world into existence with words. He blessed with words. He named with words. Then he handed that power to us. And Satan, what did he do? He uses words too. He accuses, he distorts, he renames, he tears down what God built. Words are powerful and they always work both ways. Their world has been shaken, and instead of retreating, he uses his words to rebuild it. He builds a place where she is chosen and not compared, and desired instead of evaluated, and safe instead of pressured. Words don't just describe reality, they create it. Again, notice what we don't see. They've had their fight song. They've moved through tension and hurt and distance. This would be the perfect moment for a sort of post-mortem, like an emotional audit. A long conversation about what happened. A breakdown of tone and timing and unmet expectations. God could have given us a model for how to do that sort of thing, but he didn't. Instead, what we see is something different. She speaks praise, he speaks desire. There's no debrief, there's no analysis, there's no fixing, there's just life-giving words. So why does that work? Why is that the right move here? Isn't that avoidant? Isn't that shallow? Isn't that dishonest? Or is it possible that in moments of fragility, what rebuilds intimacy is not an explanation? If we're honest, most of us use our mouths in marriage primarily for criticism. We express frustration, anger, hurt, anxiety, fear, doubt, drama, bitterness. We use words to tear each other down because we think that's how we'll get what we want. And we're really just being selfish. We want what we want. And then we treat encouragement, praise, affirmation, delight, like it's extra credit, like it's nice to have, like it's helpful, but it's not essential. At best, we think, as long as I'm faithful, as long as I show up, as long as I don't cheat, as long as I provide, I'm entitled to speak loudly about what I don't like and remain silent about what I do. And at worst, I decide that one way I can test whether or not you really like me is to push how nasty I can be before you break. That's not how it works. The tongue is never just the tongue. Proverbs says life and death are in the power of the tongue. James says it can set a forest on fire. And if it can set a forest on fire, it can burn a house down. Or it can warm one up. But it's never neutral. Okay? So before anybody goes, so we're just never supposed to talk about anything, that's not my point. My point is communication itself is not intimacy. You can communicate constantly without any intimacy. You, in fact, are always communicating. You can communicate constantly and be unsafe. You can share feelings all day and still be contemptuous. You can do a weekly relationship debrief and still be cold. So often what I think people mean when they say we don't communicate is, I just don't like the way you see me. I don't like the story you're telling. I don't like your interpretation of me or our relationship. So then what do? We demand new messages and different words and better tone and more validation. Because the fantasy is, if I can talk long enough, I can talk you into seeing me the way I want to be seen, and then you'll give me what I think I deserve from you. And we just say, the problem is communication. But the problem's not transmission, it's reception. Okay, so the sermon is not talk more, the sermon is speak life. Not speech that extracts or controls or manipulates, that demands to be understood a particular way, but speech that rather gives and blesses and builds, which is what the whole song is, from start to finish. That's all it is. It's just relentlessly positive. It's full of praise and hope and encouragement. The most negative language in the whole book is not spoken to someone. It's spoken by our girl about herself, and it's not even that negative. I am dark but lovely. I'm a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valley. Even her insecurity is not self-hatred. It's just vulnerability. And he doesn't correct her or minimize it or analyze it. He just responds with affirmation. I love you. I think you're great. You're one of one. He doesn't meet her insecurities with critique, but with love, which is not the same thing as giving her constant validation. He's not saying, I affirm everything you feel. He's saying, I delight in who you are. Those are two different things. Validation is about soothing anxiety. Delight is about awakening desire. And they're not the same. Soothing anxiety is not his job. He can't do it. She has to find her validation in God. A lot of marriages confuse the two, and then what you try to do is validate your way into intimacy or require that from your husband or your wife, and then you wonder why your desire has flatlined or the desire of your partner has flatlined. Delight breaks the cycle of that transactional reciprocity where all desire turns into obligation. Intimacy can't survive obligation. If you want to kill desire, if you want to kill intimacy, keep trying to obligate it and watch as it withers. And watch as your husband or your wife first pivots into fantasy and then withdraws entirely into themselves and then finally becomes an asexual creature. When romance comes with an agenda and all affection expects a payoff, there is coldness that shows up the moment you don't get what you want. And then you get caught in a feedback loop where one person is trying to extract, the other person is trying to regulate, and nobody is cultivating any real desire for each other. Everybody's out to get what they want. All you can hope for then is periodic relief inside a system of pressure and control. That's not what the song gives us. The song gives us desire that is expressed freely, not extracted. Delight that is cultivated and chosen, not demanded. Belonging that is secure and not leveraged. That's why the praise works, because it's not a strategy. It's a gift. You with me? Okay, back to the song. The next section's really interesting and pretty fun. Return, return, O Shulamite, return, return, that we may look upon you. Why should you look upon the Shulamite as upon a dance before two armies? Okay, now that word return may also be translated turn or spin, turn around. So immediately what we actually have is movement and motion. We've got a dance, like an actual dance. And there's at least one chorus here. Some scholars think there are actually two, like a call and response type of a thing. And that raises questions like, what kind of dance is this? The phrase dance before two armies is tricky. Sometimes it's translated dance of two camps or dance of the double rows. So like maybe there's these lines of dancers, two lines of dancers, and she's moving between them. Some people think it's maybe a wedding tradition, like a communal dance where the bride is moving through the celebration. Like, is it a line dance? Is it a contra dance? She's skipping through a party. Is this something more intimate? Is the whole point actually the question in the text? Why should you look at her? As in, this isn't a public performance. This isn't for everyone. It's just for him. Truth is, we don't know. The text doesn't tell us. That's okay. But what we do know is this. She's dancing. And her movement inspires another poem, a wasp, another song of praise of her body. Except once again, we're going to break the rules, right? Because a wasp, we've seen a couple of them, they normally go from where to where? Head to toe, right? Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Knees and toes, right? But this one starts at the bottom and works up. Okay? Goes the other direction. Because she's dancing, right? So he starts at her feet. How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O noble daughter. Your rounded thighs are like jewels, the work of a master hand. Your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies. All right. Pretty flattering, right? Feel good about that? Yes, no, maybe? Ladies, if it feel good to you? Guys, these are pretty advanced moves, not first date language. This is not we've been married 3 months language. This is we've got history language. Rounded bowls, heaps of wheat, mixed wine, lilies. Just when you think you're safe, the gazelles come back. Right? The song is almost like a romantic comedy by a man who spent way too much time alone in the woods. This is what I feel like as we go through it. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. Okay? Another one I don't recommend trying at home. Baby, your body reminds me of wildlife. Okay. Proceed with caution. Keeps going. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are pools in Heshbon. Your nose is like a tower of Lebanon. Maybe you've got a nose that puts the Muppets to shame. Dangerously advanced. Right? Okay. Here's what's actually happening. It's not crass, it's delight. He's looking at his wife in detail. He likes everything about her. Everything about her. She's his world, right? There's a man looking at his wife and saying, I see you as you are, and I want you, and I'm captivated by you, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. And then this poem ends with this line, how beautiful and pleasant you are, O loved one, with all your delights. In other words, baby, you're not a duty, you're a delight. And that's the end of that poem. Now, as you know, our boy's a big fan of gazelles and fawns and mountains. So the very next poem is basically him saying, I want to climb the mountains. I want to play with the gazelles. And it's just like, that's it. That's all the poem is. And he's got some other metaphors that he throws in there. So we're just going to skip over that one to the end of it. Okay? Jump down to verse 10. I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. That's the third time that we've had ownership in this book. The third time we've heard this kind of language. And the way it develops across the book gives us one of the clearest pictures anywhere in Scripture of how desire matures without turning into pressure. Because ownership can feel like one of two things, right? It can feel like grasping and control and leverage, like a bad, clingy high school relationship where you're always checking your phones and saying, where are you? Who are you with? What's going on? Why haven't you responded? Right? It's been 5 minutes since my last text. But ownership can also feel like security and freedom and delight. And the difference isn't in the words, it's in the order. Okay, let me show you that. Early in the song, we have springtime love and butterflies and intensity. Remember all that? The very first time this language appears, she says what? My beloved is mine, and I am his. Sounds beautiful, and it is. But notice the order. My beloved is mine. That's what comes first. She grasps first. The man is mine. The boy is mine. It's early love, sweet and earnest and intense, but not yet settled. There is, I think, a subtle insecurity there. It's not sin or manipulation. It's just immaturity. And I think that's why the song moves immediately into fear. Fear of loss, and fear of absence, and fear of rejection. Because early love clings and wants reassurance and wants certainty and closeness now. When that closeness feels threatened, anxiety spikes and intimacy feels risky. Because if I want you too much, if I reveal too much and you pull away, I'm exposed. So desire starts to get managed. And either I have to push harder or I have to protect myself by pulling back. And that's where pressure can then begin to creep in. That's where words like needy or too much or obligation start to show up. This is not an evil thing. It's a normal thing. It's part of the process. This is the way marriage works in us. Marriage is work, and when marriage works, it reveals work that still needs to be done in our hearts. But often, instead of working on our fears or our anxieties or our insecurities, instead of taking them to God, many of us try to outsource that work to our spouse. Just make me feel secure. Just make me feel safe. Just don't trigger me. Just want me enough that I don't feel afraid. But no human being can actually carry that weight. That's a job only God can do. We're actively commanded by God to cast our cares on Him, to pray with thanksgiving, to rest in His love. But that's hard, and wouldn't it be so much easier if this other person would just regulate my anxiety for me? So what do? We moralize desire, and we try to leverage intimacy, and we keep score. Not necessarily because we're trying to be mean or manipulative, but because we're scared. If I don't hold on, I'm going to lose you. I've already lost a lot. I have reasons I'm afraid. That's the first stage. But it doesn't stop there. The second time we see this language show up, it's after the fight, after misunderstanding, after distance, after rejection, after regret and pursuit. This time she inverts the two. She flips it. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. This time she gives herself first. I am my beloved's. It's not grasp first. It's offer first. Something is settled a little bit more. You feel that? She's a little less clingy, less anxious, more confident, more free. And because she's more secure, she can give herself more freely. Secure love doesn't need leverage. Neither do secure people. It's no longer, after everything I've done, if you really loved me, if you really wanted me, right? That whole way of thinking fades when love comes to rest. And then this one is the final step. I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. And now she doesn't even say he's mine. She doesn't need to. She's holding something better now. His desire is for me. I think that's the freest form of belonging, where there's no grasping or trading or scorekeeping. She doesn't have to claim him. She trusts his desire. She knows that she's wanted. When someone knows they're truly desired, intimacy stops being a negotiation and it becomes a gift. Now, there's a passage in the New Testament where the Apostle Paul talks about mutual belonging in marriage, about authority over one another's bodies. It goes like this. The husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. For the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Do not deprive one another, except perhaps by agreement for a limited time, that you may devote yourselves to prayer, but then come back together again, so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Okay, this is one of those passages that gets weaponized. Let me tell you how it's often heard. There's obligation there, clearly, right? But it's often heard this way. If you're the person who wants more intimacy, you hear this. You hear this. You belong to me, therefore you should. And if you're the person who doesn't want more intimacy, you hear, great, I'm trapped. I'm obligated to service this needy person in the most unerotic, humiliating way possible. Neither of those readings leads anywhere good, so you need to reframe that. Instead of you belong to me and owe me what I want, you need to hear, I am yours, I belong to you, so here I am. And if you can hear this, it's even better. I'm yours, you want me, so here I am. Those are two completely different worlds. One's built on pressure and obligation, the other's built on cultivated desire. Paul's not saying you owe me access. He's saying you belong to each other in love. The real obligation of marriage is not to service each other's desires, to perform the actions that look like love. The obligation is to cultivate love and desire that acts. As Paul himself puts it in Romans, owe no one anything except to love each other, for the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. This is how the Christian life works everywhere else. Jesus doesn't want obedience that is hollow and resentful. He wants obedience that flows from love and faith. We still obey, but we obey by cultivating love for him and delight in him and desire for him. And marriage works the same way. Yes, we should be intimate with one another, but we're truly intimate when we're cultivating love and desire for each other. Not for comfort or validation or for an ego boost, but for each other. To get there, control has to die. It has to be ownership without control, belonging without leverage, and desire without obligation. That doesn't mean there's no responsibility. It means the responsibility shifts. It's not, I'm a robot who must perform actions that look like love. It's, I must cultivate love. I will tend the soil where love and desire actually grow. Some of you need to stop treating desire like it's static. Like, you know how people take a personality test and then use it as an excuse to never grow? This is just who I am. This is how I am. And so I don't have to work on my character. Right? Have you ever done that? Try to pull that stunt for a little bit? Yes, people are different and desire fluctuates and seasons matter. But if you look at the song, can you tell which one of them wants it more? Which one of them wants the other the most? You can't, can you? You can't. They're both cultivating desire. Individually, intentionally, freely. And as they do, what they do is they create a positive feedback loop that makes it easier for the other. It's maturity and freedom and love that doesn't need pressure to survive. Okay, now I want to press forward in the song so that we're set up for next week and we can close it out, okay? And then I'll close with a few practical applications. So listen to how the song moves next. Come, my beloved, let us go out into the fields and lodge in the villages. Let us go out early in the vineyards and see whether the vines have budded, whether the great blossoms have opened, and the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. That's just an outdoorsy couple. That's what I think. Some of you are indoorsy and you want like Netflix and chill. And they're like, I don't know, let's go out on a hike and try to find a shady spot. Right? They do that a couple times in the book, actually. Also notice it's an invitation. It's not a demand. That's the language always. Come, let us do this. Let's see hey, let's go. You want to go for a walk? Right, she keeps going. The mandrakes give forth fragrance. Beside her doors are all choice fruits, new as well as old, which I've laid up for you, O my beloved. I'll let you figure that out on your own. Then we get to one of the strangest lines of the whole book. Oh, that you were like a brother to me who nursed at my mother's breasts. If I found you outside, I would kiss you and none would despise me. Sound weird to you? Sounds a little weird. All she's saying is, I wish I could express my affection for you freely, right? Like, I wish PDA was a little bit more acceptable in our culture, where there was no suspicion or scandal. Like, little kids can get away with it, right? Little brother and sister playing, they can get away with hugging and kissing on each other in public. Everybody smiles and thinks it's sweet. I wish we could be like that all the time. And then she says, I would lead you and bring you into the house of my mother, she who used to teach me. Earlier in the song, he brought her into his chamber. Now she brings him into hers. Same language, mirrored movement. And once again, the song lands on this refrain. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. The third time we've heard that warning, right? And if it didn't make sense before, now it really should. This is not repression. It's not fear of desire. It's wisdom. Love has a rhythm and desire has timing. Pressure always ruins both. You remember how I told you that the wedding and honeymoon in chapter 3 is the peak of the mountain? We walked up one side. We've come now back down the other side. As we have descended, the song keeps teaching the same lessons. Love can't be forced. Desire can't be demanded. Intimacy can't be rushed. Single people still here with us, like they've not abandoned us? You single people? A couple of you out there? This part's especially for you. Marriage is beautiful and complicated and hard and holy. And the song is reminding you, don't awaken love before it's ready. Timing matters. Maturity matters. Patience matters. Okay, so what's the takeaway? What's the takeaway? Just a few practical handles to walk away with today, okay? First, speak life. Speak what you admire out loud. Most of you do actually admire things about each other. You just don't say them as much as you should. You might think them or assume them or feel them, but admiration that stays internal doesn't actually build anything. Unspoken admiration doesn't build your lover up. It doesn't build confidence. It doesn't protect intimacy. It doesn't shape desire. So here's just a simple thing to do. Say what you like out loud, more often. But do it regularly. You don't have to be a poet. You just go for it. You smell good. I like your big honking nose. You remind me of a Muppet. I admire your steadiness. I think you're a good mom. I see how hard you work. I see how much you carry. You're like a pack mule. See how that works for you. Beauty and character, both matter, right? Second, name your husband or your wife well. Notice how often they use names and pet names throughout the song. Names are powerful. Names shape destiny. I have 8 kids, y'all know that? None of my 8 kids are left-handed, except probably the baby, who is named after my left-handed grandfather. It's weird how that works, right? It's weird how that works. Names shape destiny. They shape how you think about your spouse. Over time, they shape how your spouse thinks about themselves. They become part of the voice in their head, like your parents became part of the voice in your head when you were a kid. What do you hear when you fail? When you're afraid or you're unsure? When your husband or wife internalizes your voice, what do you want them to hear? Solomon is relentlessly positive. She's not the old lady or the old ball and chain. She's his beloved, his lover, and his friend, his dove. Choose names that speak life, even pet names. Same goes for your kids, but that's a different sermon. Third, refuse contempt. Contempt is the single greatest predictor of divorce. Fact. It's not just saying you're wrong, it's saying I'm above you. So no eye rolling, no mockery, no weaponized sarcasm, no public embarrassment, especially in front of the kids or other people. Contempt poisons everything it touches. Fourth, praise both in public and in private. If you need to correct something, keep that in private too. Public praise builds trust. Public criticism erodes it fast. Finally, practice. It's okay if it's awkward. It's okay if you try gazelles or puppies or kittens or whatever works for you, right? And it's okay if that falls flat because animal imagery is weird, right? Nothing good comes easy. You don't skip straight to competence. You grow into it. Figure it out. Have fun with it. When you're 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years into marriage, the question won't be, how did it start? The question will be, what did we build? Did we build something strong enough to endure hardship, strong enough to carry pain, strong enough to withstand the storms of life? Some of you feel hope. Some of you feel grief. Some of you feel both. The good news is that Jesus gave us an entire book that speaks life to his bride. He's the one who empowers us to speak life into our marriages. His voice is the voice that called the world into existence. His voice is also the voice that raises the dead. And that means he can raise even the coldest, quietest, most exhausted, it's been this way for years, marriage, back to life. You don't have to do it alone. He's going to do it with you. So here's the invitation. Cultivate love, cultivate desire, and use your words to do it. Speak life to each other. Let's pray.